we're gonna go over how to buff some of this stuff out. Now you can see it's a bit lumpy here. The grain direction is a big thing. You can see the grain's going this way, it's ground this way. So I'm gonna show you the proper techniques and what to use, because even on this side here, grain's going this way and it's getting ground this way. 120 grit flap disc on a variable speed grinder. You gotta know which way the grain's going. So the grain is going this way. So when the disc is rotating this way, I'm not gonna be here, I'm gonna be right here. So we're gonna work back and forth gently just on the front edge of that disc and try to get to the high spots out. Now really what you wanna keep in mind is you want a nice flat stable surface and just go back and forth. Now if the material starts to discolor, that means you're getting the material too hot and the grinding disc is going to degrade too quickly. That's why we use a variable speed grinder. Now I'm just working in the corner. Sometimes if you got a lot of material to take off, you could start with a 40 grit disc and then come back to a 120, but you have to progressively go down in grit sizes. Now the grit is determined by how many in 1 square inch you can get 120 grits of sand in there. So the finer the grit, the more pieces of sand, therefore the less aggressive it's going to be. Number 4 finish stainless steel is 160, 180 grit. So that's pretty much like a purple Scotch-Brite would be on the higher side of 180, but this 120 gets you pretty close. But if you went and used an 80 grit or a 60 grit, it won't be, it'll be too coarse and you're going to see it too pronounced. Now you can look and see I'm kind of tilting my head going back and forth either direction, trying to get the light to bounce off it so I can see high spots. And you get little lumps and stuff in the stainless steel, and that'll essentially be like a carnival mirror. So you want to try to keep it nice and smooth. That's why I'm keeping my grinding disc, trying to keep it as flat as I can now to try to buff some of that stuff out. We're going to switch to the Scotch-Brite pad here. Now now I got the Scotch-Brite disc on there. I'm going back and forth. I'm really careful to try to keep it nice and straight. Sometimes if you can push your finger up against the side of the piece and use that as like a track to keep it nice and straight. When I'm blending this edge out, again, I'm just tilting my head. And you got to be real careful that you don't sit in one spot very long, and like your best to make big sweeping motions, and you almost have to lift off close to the end because otherwise you get some different shades in there. But usually this works well after you have a little bit of a worn 120 grit grinding disc. It buffs it out and blends it pretty good. So you can see over here it's lumpy, and it's lumpy because it was ground with like a round disc instead of something flat. So I mean, if you want to take this to the next level, it'd be best to go and get a new flap disc and kind of regrind this all. Right here is what you don't want to do. It's the ground opposite direction of the grain. So right here, it's been attacked at here with a 60 grit die grinding with a flap disc, or like a little flapper disc. So what we're gonna do is, this is gonna be trickier now because it's all lumpy, right? Now you can see I'm gonna work back and forth here a few times, and it should go without saying, if you can't grind mild steel, I wouldn't even bother with stainless. You should be able to grind stuff really flush and nice with mild steel, and then the progression of skills would be going to stainless, because there's no room for paint to cover anything. It's all literally how you polish it. Now that I got it blended out half decent, I'm just going to try to put a consistent finish throughout the whole thing. That's why you see me do a full pass. So even with a round disc, you can see it puts a slight curve on that, but now it's been flattened out, okay? Because any lumps, it's like looking in a mirror. Any lumps in a mirror, it's going to give you like a carnival effect. So now I'm going to flip it to an old disc, and I'm going to try, now this is an old 120 grit disc, and what this is going to do is going to take the high spots off of this And I don't mean the high spots as in lumps. I mean more so the point that it was a coarse 120 grit. Now this is a bit dull, and it's going to bring it down a little bit more. So when we use the Scotch-Brite wheel, it'll make it nice and easy to blend out. Make sure you're not using like unknown grinding discs. These are all grinding discs coming from a stainless box, so I know that they've only been used polishing stainless steel. If you use a grinding disc that was used on mild steel, it'll actually embed iron in there and it'll rust. So it's very important to make sure you use clean grinding disc. Now I'm rocking the grinding disc just slightly back and forth, trying to make the coarse 120 grit lines go away, and that's why you see me going back and forth a few times. So you can see it got maybe most of those lumps out, and now you can see it's a lot less aggressive. Now what I can do is finish it off with a Scotch-Brite pad. Because if you tried to finish it off with a fresh 120 grit disc, it would be, you'd still see the lines pretty bad. Now we're gonna work back and forth. And again, I'm just tilting my head, trying to catch light on the different areas to make sure that it's looking consistent. And progressively, I'm probably gonna walk forward a little bit. I'm gonna just do the outside edges here. Again, you can make that look pretty bad if you're just going and going wobbling and going nuts on it. So try to keep it straight. So comparatively, that looks pretty good. Like you can still see some lumps in there, and it's like reflecting in a weird way, but like the majority of it looks a lot better. So this wasn't meant to blend it all out. This is just meant to recover what someone did here.